Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 11. We are speaking to the lovely Anita. She is the founder of Living on the Spectrum, and she has done so much good in this world, can I just say? As a parent, when you get diagnosed with a child who has autism, you don't really know where to go. You don't know what to do or how it works. I'm just going to go live over here. And so it feels very confronting at the beginning of the journey because you're not sure what services to access. You're not sure where to go, where to turn, what does autism look like? And Anita is the pioneer in this. She is the one that has created a national directory for all services that deal with either autism or any kind of neurodivergence. Now, I love that. And I want every parent to know how important that is. And so I'm going to hand the microphone over to Anita. So Anita, welcome. Thank you for coming on to You Are Seen.
Thank you. What a great introduction. Thanks for that.
You're so welcome. All right. So what prompted you to start Living on the Spectrum?
Yeah. So when I have 3 adult children now, but when my son turned 12, he was going through a really bad time mentally. His mental health was very poor. He was struggling with school refusal, self-harming, and we really did not know what was happening. So we obviously went to psychologists and psychiatrists and trying to sort of seek help and support for him. And we ended up receiving an autism diagnosis for him. And for me, that was a relief because I knew now how to support him, how to help him. But the psychologist handed me this piece of paper with 3 websites on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what am I going to do with these 3 websites? It was very little information. I didn't know where to go. So I don't know if you as parents, you go into that really deep dive, that doom scrolling and you don't quite know what to do. And I was so frustrated. And I kept saying, why hasn't anyone put all this information in one spot? And I decided I would do it. I decided that I would crudely build my directory just really for me. I took it to a few people. They loved it. And Living on the Spectrum, the very first national autism directory in Australia, was born, which was amazing.
I love that so much because, like you, I feel like I walked out of the pediatrician's office with this much information for my son and nothing for me, right? And I think that, yes, I'm glad that we've got this much information, but trying to go through that amount of information can be so overwhelming. And yes, I'm happy that there is something like that, but having a place where it's all in one spot, amazing. A place where you can go and you can peruse and everything's easy to read and it's easy to access and it's really self-explanatory. So I love that so much. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but was Living on the Spectrum the first nationally recognised autism directory in Australia?
Yeah, so look, there were smaller directories out there, and usually they were by state or area or region, but there was no sort of national platform. And I actually launched Living on the Spectrum just before COVID and the lockdown hit. So everybody was rediscovering, the opportunity to access therapies and supports virtually and online. So what that did was that opened up all the resources. A psychologist that practiced in Sydney, suddenly a person from Melbourne or a family from Melbourne could access that support, and they could find, the first available psychologist or psychiatrist. It wasn't a case of waiting for someone in your area. So that really opened that opportunity up for the platform. But we were the first sort of national to launch, which was amazing. We have since sort of we're slowly creeping into the UK, and we've got a huge reader and followership in the United States, and we're sort of building our reach in Asia. So we are slowly growing, but predominantly we're still Australian based, which is where I want to be, where I see the direction of the directory. And we are Australian, and we're looking for services and supports, and they're the supports that I actually need for my own family. So I'm really driven by that. But yeah, I'm really proud to say that we were Australia's very first national autism directory.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that you're encroaching and going into the UK area because obviously we all need support. We all need help. I think this journey can be very confusing at times and very scary. And having something like living on the spectrum as a first point of call to go to know that you've got all of these services at your access. And, because a lot of the times, I don't know if this has been your experience, Anita, but how do you access something if you don't know it exists? How do you do you know what I mean? Like, I have
Yeah.
spoken to so many parents and like, we didn't know that this was even a thing, right? How do you know if you don't have a platform that you can go to that has all of these options that that you can see and register and speak to and all that? Has that been an experience as well?
Yeah, look, I've got a great saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? So, and I had a lot of people saying, I wish I had known about this particular service when my child was in primary school, or I wish I had known about this service when I was starting out on my journey. And I don't want anybody to say that again, because this platform that I've created, it's basically like, I actually say it's like Google, only better, because you're not sort of going through the fluff of not of things that aren't relevant for you. And you're not getting those, those services sort of pushed to you that don't really service you. So it's easy, you can access it 24/7. It's free. You don't have to register. It's basically like a 24/7 resource hub for you to do. But also it's really important because there is so much information about autism and neurodiversity and carer supports. Sometimes it's really difficult to know what is right and what is not right, but more importantly, what is right for your family, because what suits one family might not suit another family. So it's really important to know that you can pick and choose the resources and supports that you need for your family. And you can be quite choosy because there are so many to choose from via the online hub. So I find that exciting. And I've found some, personally, because I have two autistic children, I've got 3 children in total, but I've got 2 autistic children. I have found for my family some amazing resources, resources that have helped my son find employment, find beautiful social connections, and even for myself, I found beautiful community people to work with and to know what I'm going through, and I feel supported and connected. And I think that's probably my driving factor, is that building that really safe, connected community via the platform.
And I love the fact that you've got lived experience. For me, that trumps everything, right? I feel like that's like the top deck of the card, that if you have lived experience and then you've gone on to create something where there has been a gap, where you feel like, parents aren't getting the support and the services that they need, you look at it from a different perspective. You see it from a different perspective, as opposed to a person, an entrepreneur, whoever, who maybe doesn't have a child who is neurodivergent and is trying to forge that way without that lived experience. It's just not the same. It doesn't hit home. That's been my experience. I feel like I have had a plethora of different, spoken to different professionals who haven't had neurodivergent children or haven't raised them, and just some of their responses, I'm like, well, hang on, like, this doesn't marry up. This is not exactly how it works. So I love that you have that experience. So that is a great segue into my next question, which is, can you share a little bit around your family's journey with neurodivergence and what that looked like?
Yeah, well, what's exciting is I've actually discovered my own neurodiversity through the journey. So, I've got my little stimmy toy here, and I'm always got something in my hand. And look, I have always known that my own brain worked a little bit different, but I couldn't quite put it into a category or even label it. And I didn't know why I struggled so much in life with reading and writing and studying and communication. And I don't know why, social situations set me into huge anxiety, even though I presented quite confidently. It was quite a shock. So learning about my own children's journey, I sort of learned a lot about myself, which was exciting. So this obviously started, I mentioned, with my son, who got his diagnosis at 12 years old, when he was just sort of transitioning from primary school to high school. And I think that's, for a lot of families, that's actually quite a huge milestone. And I hear a lot of families learning about that, their child's autistic neurotype at that particular time, because it's such a huge transition, primary to secondary. My daughter, my youngest daughter, who's now 19, has a diagnosis of ADHD and autism. And as a female like me, she was a huge masker, presented well in social situations, but internally struggled, and her mental health was really struggling. That all came to a head when she was in year 12, and we removed her from school for lots of different reasons. And now she is thriving. She's got a diagnosis that she can relate to, and she understands her brain. And I've got an older daughter, again, who has an ADHD diagnosis. So we're all neuro, and my husband, we always say he's undiagnosed. But, I suppose that's another story. But, we are a family. We call ourselves neurodivergent because I'm, autistic, ADHD. I have dysgraphia. So I always just call myself neurodivergent because I just say my brain works a little bit differently, and I'm okay with that. And as a family, that's just the way I say that's just the way we roll, to me. We are a family that understands each other's nuances. We make, provisions for our own sensory needs and learning needs. And we sort of just understand each other. Don't get me wrong. We clash and we get all sensory overwhelmed and we have meltdowns, all of us, including myself. So it's not an easy ride, but we know when we come out the other end of it that we all support each other and we all have each other's back. And I think that is a really powerful thing to have as a family. And I wish that I can impart and share that with other families. And I'm sure you do too. I'm sure that's your message as well in the journey that you do. So I really like working with people who share that mission in life.
Yeah, I love that so much because it is rough. And when you are dealing with a child who is having a meltdown, your nervous system as a parent, I don't care whether you're neurodivergent or whether you're neurotypical, your nervous system is going to be off anyway. So having that ability to then be able to regulate yourself in order to be able to give back and make sure that your child is in a safe place and that they can be cared for I'm telling you, it's an art. It is an art form. And it's something that is not taught, and it's something that you sort of almost need to figure out yourself on how that looks, because like we know, every child is going to present differently and their needs are going to be different as well. So I love that. And I love the fact that when, with regards to your daughter, in terms of seeing her being diagnosed, is it obviously like it's much harder? I've got so many of my girlfriends now who are being diagnosed much later in life because they've either been gaslit during their teen years or they just assume that this is how everyone rolls. Like this is what it's supposed to feel like, right? It's supposed to be hard and that your brain is supposed to be full of, just noise and it's not, there's no clarity and whatnot. And it's supposed to be harder that all this is happening. Do you find that that's the case in your community or what you've seen with your friends?
I have the people that I've spoken to as a female, I just feel like sometimes, not all the time, I don't want to be too general, but it comes down to not being believed. We often think that we're either overreacting, we're being hysterical, we're, overreaching in our exaggeration of the experiences we're having. And it's because other people just can't relate. And we present so well. For example, I can get on stage and I can talk and present to hundreds of people, and then the next day not be able to function or talk. Or Natalie, you can relate. I could be emailing someone half an hour before I'm supposed to be on a podcast going, where is those questions and where is the podcast link? Because not that I don't want to do it. It's just that my brain really finds it hard to get organized and to get things done. And when you present so well and you mask so well, because we've had to do it all our life, it becomes hard to fathom that internally is different to what you see externally. And I think that is what lots of us are working on. We see it a lot with, social media and TikTok, and lots of celebrities and high profile people are now talking about it, which helps our cause. And I think the more we talk about it and the more we say, the way you're feeling is okay, but it can be better with the right support and someone who listens and hears you and truly understands your experiences, I think is only going to help, especially as we get older, as women get older and hormones come into play and menopause and premenopause comes into play, and you become too mentally exhausted to mask anymore, then your family suffers, your relationships suffer. It's why a lot of women find themselves in dire financial strait or homelessness, or they find drug dependency or alcohol dependency. It has a huge knock-on effect that we really need to focus more on.
I love that. I like menopause in itself, or perimenopause, is it's overwhelming in its own right. But then if you couple that with neurodivergence, my goodness, like I just don't think that there is enough support there. So I can I also just say you're an exceptional speaker. I have seen Anita speak, and I think that you do an amazing job of being able to be really relatable. For people to look and hear your words and be like, yeah, I've been there too, and it's hard, and there's lots of components that come with it, but it can be done, and we can get through this, and we can master it. And it's not like I often say with parents, when my son was first diagnosed, it was given to me, that diagnosis was given to me as a tragedy. It's not a tragedy, right? It's not a tragedy. It's just a different way of looking at the brain. Like, let's just embrace this for what it is, as opposed to being so scared of it and being so worried that they're not going to achieve the things that you thought they were going to be or do or have. So, yeah. All right. So how has living on the spectrum changed your life?
Well, the main way it's changed my life, it's made us as a family learn about ourselves, what brings us joy, what keeps us safe, how we can learn and work in a really safe way that accepts our brain. For me, it's being in the advocacy trail. I used to feel like I was a difficult parent when I used to go to the school and go, look, my child needs more support. I used to feel like I was that parent, and I was so afraid of being labeled as that parent. And now I've learned, and I tell others, as I'm sure you do too, Natalie, that you should never apologize for standing up for your children, ever, 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 even if you feel that the smallest change could have the biggest impact. You need to say it out loud to someone, and they need to listen. So I think I have become less, I wanted to initially say less ashamed of speaking up. And I suppose that's it. I wanted to feel more empowered. I suppose I feel more empowered now to advocate for my rights. Obviously, I have met amazing people. I get to travel Australia, talking to amazing carers and parents and organisations. So I travel more now, which is amazing because I absolutely love travelling. And it's really just brought me joy. Living on the spectrum saved my life, because I do speak about this sometimes. COVID for me mentally was not a great time for me, and I almost did lose my life on several occasions. And by building the platform and being immersed in this community and meeting extraordinary people and having a mission in life, really did save my life. And I can't walk away from that, and I won't walk away from that, because I wouldn't be here. And I've heard stories that the platform has also been an empowering and driving force in their family. And even if I have changed one life, my mission in life, I feel accomplished, and I feel like the platform is doing its job.
Oh my God. Lockdowns it was hard. It was intense. And I think that we weren't equipped with the right mindset in order to get through that. And there was a lot of fear as well. So are you able to share quickly what one of those stories in terms of how a family has been helped by living on the spectrum?
Yeah, look, I speak to families all the time, and I'll share one that happened recently. I was speaking at the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival over the weekend, and I had two people approach me. One was a young teenage woman. I say young because when you're older, anyone who's younger than you is young. And she came to me, and she was in tears, saying that for the first time she's felt heard and seen, when people had been calling her difficult and weird and trouble. And she started to believe that, where in actual fact it wasn't her, it was them. If they had understood that not everybody needs to fit into that square, and not everybody needs to live life in this, this societal norm that we've all sort of led to believe that life is supposed to be like. And she walked away thinking that there's other people like me. And I was able to sort of, point her into the directory and show her that there were supports available for her and really safe groups and communities that she could go and be herself and she would be accepted. And I think that was amazing. And the other one was a beautiful couple that came and saw me, who actually just came to see me speak because they had heard about my journey of the directory. And they were so thankful that it existed. And that was just amazing because because I'm a neurodivergent person, I'm an advocate, but I'm also a businesswoman because I run this as a business. And you have this imposter syndrome. You think, I am rubbish at everything. I can't get on top of things. I am really bad at business. I'm a great advocate, but I'm really bad at business. And when you have families and people that come to you and say, I visited the directory, it's helped me, I now feel seen, you think, well, maybe I'm not that bad at business. So it's great to hear those stories.
Not at all. And at the end of the day, I think that we've all got that imposter syndrome at one point or another. I am yet to meet an entrepreneur or a business owner who, even the ones that are earning $500,000 a year, still have that imposter syndrome. So I don't think it ever really goes away. And I think that's also a sign that we care, right? Yeah. We really care. And we want to make sure that this business is delivering to the best of its ability. Okay, so in your experience, what do you think carers are really struggling with at the moment, and how have you found that, and you've touched on this a little bit in regards to living on the spectrum, but what have you found are the biggest challenges that carers have come through and told you at the moment?
Yeah. So number one is parents who care for their autistic child or their child with ADHD or their child with intellectual disability or their child with a learning difficulty are also carers. And I find a lot of parents go, well, that's just my job. They are my child. Correct. It is your job. But you have added responsibilities that you do willingly. And there is no doubt in my mind that as a parent, I will do whatever I need to do as my parents, even if it impacts my own life. There is no doubt that my children will always come first. But parents are not recognizing themselves as carers, and they're not realizing that there are carer supports out there. You are a prime example of that. There is someone you can go and talk to. There's government organizations you can go to. There is a raft of people you can have in your tribe and your community that can back you up because you are also a carer. So I think it's important to recognize that and to give yourself a break and to seek support. So that's my number one, as a parent. And then the other thing is that relentless facade that we try and hold together in front of our friends and family who don't understand our journey, and we don't want to share the difficulties or the bad times or the tough times because we're scared to share that for fear of us being judged as bad parents. We don't want to be seen as bad or failing parents, and I think we all have that fear, and I think we try and hide, and I think we shouldn't have to hide our family because it's not that we're less than, or it's not that our family is not worthy of being included with our friends and family. It's just that we need to be forthcoming. And if those friends and family do not accept us for who we are, then you know what? Too bad. It seems like a bit of a them problem. You know what I mean? Like, they need to move on. So I think giving yourself permission to be authentic as a family and not have to keep up the facade is something that I think all parents with children who are autistic or have additional needs face. And I want them to let them know that you don't need to keep pretending. Your family is, if you support it and accept it and your family feels safe, that is, you are doing your job. Well done, Mum.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of carer burnout as well, right? There is so many carers and so many parents and so many, like, everyone that falls under that umbrella is just gotten to a point where they're like, I just can't go on. Like, I just don't know what else to do.
You know what? You've touched on a really great point, because what happens when you take your child to therapies and supports, you are often in that therapy session or that support session with your child. So your child is getting the therapy and support. but you're also getting the therapy and support because you're learning and you're listening, and you have to obviously then go away and practice what you've learned. So you are also receiving that. You are also learning. So that's also, it's all building up, all these things you have to remember and all these things you have to do. And you're right, burnout is such a huge thing. And yeah, we need to recognize ourselves before we get to the point of no return. And yeah, so get support before we actually fall into that burnout where we can't actually help ourselves.
100%. Okay, so obviously we've been telling everyone about living on the spectrum. Can you actually tell them what the actual website is?
Okay, so it's livingonthespectrum.com. And when you go on, you don't need to register. I don't need to know your name. You can just come and go as you please. It is literally like the Google, but just for autism and neurodiversity. And then you can search for supports via state or territory, or you can search under categories. So there'll be, books, there will be, psychologists, there'll be carer supports, there'll be driving, there'll be social stories. There's a whole raft of categories. And then sometimes, you might go, I don't know what I'm looking. So you can just literally go on and just scroll through all the different categories to get an idea of what might help your family, which is what I absolutely love. And the fact that you can come and go as you please. I don't need to know who you are when you use the platform. It's 100% free. I will never, ever, ever, ever ask you for money to use the platform. I really just want to make sure that you find what you need and you learn, because there's lots of stories as well. We share lots of articles and we share the research. So you actually get to learn what's going on. And because it's run by someone who's neurodivergent, I'll never be talking about curing autism. I'll never be talking about the negatives. There are impacts as a carer that I will talk about and discuss, but I'm never going to sort of tell you that you need to fix your family if what you're doing is working.
Yeah, definitely. So you heard that again. So it's www.livingonthespectrum.com, and you can find all the resources there. Okay, so the fun part. This is the rapid fire questions. So nothing too hard, don't worry. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received around autism?
Listen to people with lived experience. 100%. Just learn everything. Just listen to the people who are walking the walk and living and actually living it, to actually learn about what really brings joy to autistic people.
My goodness, say it for the people in the back. Oh my gosh, yes, this is very good. One word to describe your experience with autism.
Roller coaster. Is that one word?
That has been a lot of people's words. So yes, that's great. What, other than living on the spectrum, what is your favorite autism resource?
Amaze, 100% Amaze. They also they have a what's called Autism Connect, where you can go and say if you go on Living on the Spectrum and you go, no, I really need to talk to someone who gets me. You can actually phone them or you can email them and ask any random question you like, and it's free. So Amaze.
I love that. I love the fact that there are so many free resources that people may or may not know. So that's the best part. If you could give one piece of advice to a parent who has just received an autism diagnosis for their child, what would it be?
Visit Living on the Spectrum. Yeah. Look, I generally think that you need to stop doom scrolling. So I think what happens if you go on random Google, you just get so overwhelmed because there's so much information, and there's so much information for profit. So there's lots of people selling products who are not necessarily genuine, and it's really hard to know who's legit and who's not legit. So on Living on the Spectrum, I filter everybody, and I will not have anybody on there who is not a genuine resource for the community.
I love that. Oh, thank you so much, Anita, for coming on and chatting with us today. Is there anything that you would like to add before we wrap up?
No, I just think, Living on the Spectrum is a passion project. I'm definitely not making millions from this project. In fact, I've invested a lot of money. So, if you do like what I'm doing, visit the website, because everyone who visits the website just helps us generate revenue so we can then keep the platform going. And I want to keep it free. So even if you're curious, go on the website, because it helps the whole community by doing so.
Excellent. I will be putting the link to Living on the Spectrum after we finish up, just so that everyone can go. It's nice and easy just to jump on and click on the link and it'll take you right there. Thank you so much again for coming on and talking to me, and until we meet again.
Thanks, Natalie. Great.
Thank you. Bye,
See you
Anita.
later. Bye.